Before I got my first professional camera, the Panasonic G85, I was using a point and shoot. I barely deserved to be alive. I had no idea the world that lied ahead of me. With interchangeable lenses, I got my little f20 0.95 lens. I was a professional at heart and in the mind. I did a whack load of research and I came to the conclusion that Panasonic was the right camera for me. It had a flippy screen, best IBIS in the business, and I did plan on vlogging with that 50mm equiv lens. I was like, good stave for that. I had no idea that you could go wider. But fast forward 70 years, and here we are on the Panasonic GH6. We've improved quite a bit. Autofocus, somewhat. I can't tell if that's in focus, because your screen resolution falls behind. I wrote down 5 reasons that I might sell the Panasonic GH6. Disappointed am I? A little bit.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So we're on the Panasonic GH6 with the Leica 25mm 1.4. You basically couldn't do better for a YouTube studio if you're in micro four thirds, and yet still, I'm left desiring other things. When I first got the GH6, I liked the color science. I was like, this looks better. Wow, look at that. And then I look back and I'm like, I look green. How did I like that? I don't understand. So maybe it looks good, but that's one of my reasons. If you wanted to do an all-encompassing camera that could do YouTube life, vlogging, and wildlife, I don't know that we have it. I took the GH6 out with the Leica 200mm prime for one day, and then on a separate day, I took the Sony a7S III out again with the 200 to 600. So we have a bunch of footage to compare, which will lead into some of the reasons that... So the first reason, even though I've already given you the second reason, let's just get it out of the way. The autofocus / manual focus / electronic viewfinder resolution. They all tie in together. We all know Panasonic cannot autofocus well. They keep improving it, and then you think it's reliable, and it is pretty smooth in here. I could kind of trust it. It's not bad in here. And for vlogs, somewhat respectable. But when you actually need it to work most, it will fail you hard. It will run. If you want to track anything, just expect nightmares to happen. Not only will your subject not be in focus the whole time, you will also notice a lot of pulsy, freaky movements. Super annoying. And our #1 complaint, still not being worked on for all we know. What the hell is happening, Panty Boy? To make matters worse, the manual focus experience is not up to par. If you lack autofocus, you need to be having like top class leading manual focus at least, so we can actually take control. But I find a combination of peaking not being great, the viewfinder not being very accurate, like resolution wise. Let me show you an example here. I had a little dark-eyed Junko. I could not really tell if he was in focus. It looks like I'm pretty back focused, pretty hard. It's not really close, and I don't have peaking on, so I'm like relying on the sharpness of the viewfinder. And here someone came, ruined my life, and I was like, there's no way I'll track that. Could any system have got that shot? Probably not. But still, I wanted it. Yeah, I did. Here's a perfect example. The cardinal lands right in front of me. I had it, I lost it, and I'm like, fine tweaking, there, we got it. And then I thought it was in. I lost it. And I was like, okay, we got it. It looked like it was in focus in my bullshit viewfinder, and it ruined the perfect shot. That would have been it. You can't get a cardinal to land closer than that. And I had him. Thankfully, he pitied me and let me have a second shot at it, and I got a little closer, and not bad. Not bad, Panty Boy. Like, I could not expect a better image from any camera unless it was Sony full frame. I mean, here's the Sony shot I got on that day, and I prefer the Panasonic image. The Panasonic was pure and utter magic. But like, that viewfinder had me second guessing the whole shot, panicking, and I can now not count if a bird is in focus or not. I have no idea. You know, it's really nice that sometimes when I'm using the Sony, I can use autofocus, even though there's no animal eye detect. I can put a little box and Sony will get it. So it's like, oh, there we go. If I'm struggling with manual focus for some reason, I can just quickly get a shot in auto and it's like, boom, there we go, we got it. I do it quite often. Whereas Panasonic, you can just never do that. It's gonna pulse weird in the leaves, it's shaky, it's bad. Now the second reason, which was color, we've been witnessing it, is it's somewhat respectable. I'm actually gonna switch right now to Sony color signs. Now that we have the Lantern of Life, that might have helped things. But we were custom white balance, V-Log, dynamic range boost on. Now let's switch to disgusting Sony color signs. Disgusting Sony. How could you do this to my face? Unbelievably bad. So, color science, I'm not a huge fan. Not a huge fan. Outside, it looks good. Inside, for some reason, that always messes me up. Unless you're Canon, Canon looks good in here. Maybe Sony does now with the Lantern of Life from smallrig.com. The third reason, and this is a deal-breaking flaw, no camera I've ever had has this much of a delay time pressing on. You press on, it's like 3 seconds most of the time. I've had it be instant for some reason, but when I'm out in the field, you turn it on, you're waiting, so you cannot turn it off. And when you press record, you hear the beep, and it's not recording. You think it's 2 seconds later it starts recording, and then your viewfinder changes. Once that 2 second kicks in, you were like in this frame, and then it jumps and catches up, and it's a lag, and it's like, what is this? What kind of processor is in that thing? A DOS, MS-DOS, the first one. You got to have at least 2-core DOS. I've seen them. As the woodpecker of hope slides up a tree, he was not in focus, but his friend was for a moment in time, and they left my life forever. This little woodpecker, just chilling, magic mode engaged, not bad. This actually, the first woodpecker I've ever seen refuse to peck anything, ever. He was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. You expect me to do it? I don't want to. I just want to look at this branch, and I'm going to. That brings us to the lens selection of Penny Boy. For wildlife, I'm finding the 200mm beautiful, but at most times, it's not really enough reach. There's many times where I see a bird, I'm like, that's a tiny bird in my shot. Even if the shot was magical little dark-eyed junco pecking at a red flower bush. That's what those are called, with the fluff flying in the background, becoming more done by the second. The wind blowing in his hair. It's like, it's pretty tiny. It's not super magical when it's that tiny. And the teleconverter just turns your manual focus into non-linear manual focus, even though they're sold together, as the dark junco leaps to his death. I'm disappointed, as you can see in this perfect comparison of two dogs traveling the way they choose to. Penny Boy just didn't really have the reach there, and the car driving dog, it was kind of nice. There's no obvious choice though. The 200's kind of not far enough. The 100 to 300, it's a ghetto unsharp lens. The 100 to 400, decent, but so dark. 6.3 I think, or 6.7 maybe. And the stiff zoom, and it's just bad. I don't like using that lens. Terrible build quality. And then the Olympus, they're not sync stable. So like the 300mm prime, now you're only IBIS and it's gonna be shaky. You got no options from two systems, it's a lie. What do you shoot with? So you have to go with the 200mm, that's your only option. And then you're cropping in post, and you're losing details. I just can't help but wonder, like, what are the advantages over full frame? I mean, when you get a squirrel resting on a tree in full frame, and he leaves your life, you're like, damn, that looks good. Even though I don't know how to expose black squirrels on a bright background, I didn't have to. Squirrels on Penny Boy they're not the same. I don't know, I guess it's because he was so much further away and I switched into HD 300 frames per second versus the 4K 120p. That kind of had some effect. You notice there's not a lot of magic in this shot, and then you go to the full frame squirrels and they're just like magic is easing out of their fur. as they eat the sunflower seeds of life. It's not fair. And I do wonder, like, what does Panasonic have that full frame is lacking? There's nothing. Here's the reality. There's the big three companies right now: Nikon, Canon, Sony. They're the top dogs that the pros are using. They all have full frame systems with animal eye detect. Some of them, Sony, we're looking at you, only your cheaper versions have it right now. So you downgrade to get that feature. Slice. So those are the professional systems. When you come down from those three, you're looking into fringe groups of society that have their strengths, but also glaring weaknesses. You got your Olympus, owned by a sushi company. They're rugged and weather sealed, light, good stay, but just the specs are lacking. The slow-mo, terrible. You got Fuji with your vintage colors, sometimes amazing vintage. Sometimes you're like, why that color? And the unreliable autofocus, jerky stabe. There's so much wrong with the non-top three. It's like, why do you choose them over it? Micro Four Thirds has a tiny sensor. It should be doing faster specs, but you're just matching an A7S III from the past. Oh, tiny little bug. What are you? Don't you know that winter's coming? It's Canada. You're not gonna make it. You're struggling so hard right now. I'm glad you don't bite. Just leave our life. I saw a great heron, bumped it up to 12,800 ISO. Pretty clean. I mean, Panny Boy would have struggled in that shot. I tried to mirror the heron, so there's two of him, both lacking food. There's no fish left. It's Canada. It's cold here. Even the fish know that. Image quality is not everything, unless you're a Blackmagic user, and then you're like, yeah, no matter what, bro, look at that image, and you're rigging out and you're just hating every second. It's kind of like that when you're using Panasonic. I find it like I'm not enjoying getting the shot in focus, really not enjoying it. Whereas with Sony, whenever I see something, I know I'm gonna have it within focus in a couple seconds, either by autofocus or very quickly manually focusing and then switching. Sometimes it's kind of, the only annoying thing on Sony is there's an autofocus manual focus switch, and sometimes it does not work. The button is just like, did I press it? And the focus box will stay there if it's in manual. Like, why doesn't that disappear and just turn? Then it's very obvious. Like, just little things like that. Like, who writes these menu systems? Meanies. That's who. Here's a funny shot. I got this cardinal. He's about to fly off. I'm like, no. And then I pan. Eventually, I caught him for a split second. I was like, oh, wow. I wasn't even looking at any viewfinder. I was just like, I got him. A slight second. Another annoying thing about the Panasonic is the battery life. I've already mentioned it, but it's surprising how fast it dies out there. Even if you're just 4K 120p, I guess that is a pretty demanding spec, but it's like one outing and it's done. You're lucky to make it the full outing. Whereas Sony, it's like, I never come back and think I better charge that thing for next time. Like, it's always lasting. Like that's a full frame battery. It's in the S5, it's the same one, yet it doesn't power the GH6. You're stupid. I got this female duck doing this like bathing ritual. I was like, wow, look, what was that noise? It sounded so exciting. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? Oh, it's a duck. That's what my show is. 90% ducks and squirrels, but still, I do need tens of thousands of dollars of gear to film this. Trust me, you could not get by with anything less. Switched over into HD 240p. For a little slower magic that could be had for all. The cinema was not really ours. The noise level was undeniably bad, but sure, it looks like a smartphone, but it's super slow smartphone and good full frame. It's a little heavier than a smartphone, but there were some usable moments in that. No, it wasn't in focus. So what? So I'm actually super annoyed using the GH6, and I don't know that it complements my Sony, like a smaller, lighter version that I could travel with. I'm not sure that that's my system. It just doesn't feel fun to use. I love how stable it is. I like the look of it. Image quality is good enough. 4K 120p, okay. HD 300, a little trashy, but it's usable. The image is fine. It's just getting focus. Super annoying. I'm gonna go out and do monochrome viewfinder. So everything's black and white, but turn peaking on, and it'll be so obvious. The little red, that'll be the only thing I see is red on the focus point. That will help me. Hopefully someone helps this man who was trying to bury stolen bank money. He was doing it on the trail. Hopefully nobody comes by to see him and discovers his treasure. Oh no, there's someone coming. What are you gonna do, Steve? Oh no, hurry, bury it before he finds it. He's gonna steal. He knows where it is now. Your treasure. No, there's no one. Oh God, someone's. Oh, hey, Johnny. Oh, I was just digging for turtles, you know. They hide in the winter, apparently. What you got there? What's all that gold? No, it's turtle food. Turtle food, Johnny. They were both later arrested because I called the police on my Huawei phone. So Panasonic, you sicken me. I am considering selling it. I'm still open to keeping it, and I am going to use it a couple more times, and we'll see what happens. But I have sold some things, so now only the 25mm Leica and the 200mm Leica are mine, and the 50 to 200's in a closet. I don't even consider me owning that. I will never use that, ever. But I look for greener grass. And the only two systems that are intriguing are Nikon and Canon. And either one of them, animal eye detect, that could be fun. They're both way too expensive, and I already have a Sony. So there's no point looking, why do I make these videos? I don't know. Even I don't know. Still, you could buy a Sony Reptilian t-shirt. And the gear. Even though I'm not happy with it, it could make you happy. Material things, huh? Those are fun. Those provide long-lasting happiness. That's all I know for sure. Especially if you shop through my affiliate links. Sony Color Science. I'm gonna go.